Thank you for joining us for Glasgow 2024 Presents Meet the Author. Today we'll be talking to Quenby Olson. So I'm here with Quenby Olson, the author of the Miss Percy series, which I absolutely adore, and numerous other novels and novellas set in mostly in England. Is everything set in
Yeah.
England? Okay.
Mostly everything is set in England. Yeah.
So just absolutely one of my favorite authors is writing right now, and I'm super excited to get to be talking to her. So let's go ahead and get started. And Quenby, where are you based?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Where are you based? Where do you live?
Where am I based?
Yeah.
I live in central Pennsylvania, just outside of Harrisburg, which is dancing on the fringes of Amish country, and Hershey Park and all of that. So if you have any idea of where those areas are and can bring those to mind, that's about where I am.
Okay. So next question is, what is your experience of, or your impression of, Scotland?
I was there once, years and years ago. Unfortunately, it was just to be in the airport before I then flew down to Manchester. So my main experience of it was seeing it from the airplane window, and we flew into, and I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, and Scottish people will yell at me, Edinburgh, or Edinburgh, however they say it. But that's where we flew into, and it was beautiful. So my first impression of it was that it was just beautiful and gorgeous, and I loved how the fields were marked off by all these stone walls and dotted with the sheep and everything. And I remember we flew in overnight, and speaking to people in the airport who had these very, very heavy Scottish accents, and I was so tired that I couldn't understand what anyone was saying, and I felt so bad having to ask people to repeat themselves over and over, and felt like the quintessential dumb American going, wait, what are you saying? What are you saying? Why do I not understand this? You're speaking English. I don't know what you're saying. So that is, unfortunately, that is my my one run-in with Scotland. is a layover at the airport until I went down to England.
Okay, now's your chance to give me your elevator pitch for your book. You can choose the book in 2 handfuls of words, so 10 words, more or less. Go.
Okay. Yeah, 40-year-old woman inherits a dragon. Chaos and biscuits ensue.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
There you go. That's it.
Well done. Well done. I think that's great. If there's some way to work in the Regency England part, I think.
Yeah.
Somehow.
In
Regency England,
chaos and biscuits ensue.
Okay. And the follow-up to that, to go with the biscuits, is, what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate marshmallow. Which I can't find it very often. But when I was a kid, I remember there was one brand, and it would have the marshmallow cream just swirled in with the chocolate ice cream. So you'd hit just these veins, like when you see like veins of coal running through mountains, it was like veins of marshmallow cream running through the ice cream as you'd scoop it out. So
nice.
that is my favorite ice cream flavor.
So it's not Rocky Road. It's where the marshmallows are individual. It's chocolate with marshmallows swirled.
Like swirled into it. Yes.
That sounds delicious. That does sound delicious. It's also like one of those rare ice cream unicorns. Like my daughter and I both love plain banana, but it's almost impossible to find plain.
I'm not sure I've ever seen that.
Who is your main character?
I'm actually going to say Miss Percy. I'm going to say Mildred. I think because she is the most like myself, and so she is my age. She hit that point in her life where she worried that she wasn't going to have any more adventures, that, things were now taking a downturn because she was older. And so I connected with that so much. And as I think she's as close to a self-insert as I've probably ever written in that regard. So she's my favorite. She's my way of having some fantasy dragon adventures myself, kind of a little bit. So yeah, she's my favorite.
Awesome. One of the things that I love, and I love Mildred too, and I think that that's one of the things why that people do, why Miss Percy has caught on so much, is because it's also a rare gem. It's a rare unicorn to find middle-aged heroine in a fantasy novel, and that she's still going through all of the things that typically younger heroines go through, but she has the added layer of dealing with societal expectations for a woman of a certain age, that a woman of a certain age doesn't do those things and doesn't flirt with bachelor vicars and and chase and carry baby dragons around in the countryside and all of those things. So next question, this is a very controversial one. So Star Trek or Star Wars?
Geez. Gosh, why if I say both, I feel that's not going to be allowed.
You can, it's allowed, but you have to say why. You have to say
okay. I feel like Final Jeopardy music is playing in my head here. Yeah, exactly. I grew up with both of them. My mother was more of a Star Trek fan, but I think I watched more Star Wars on my own independently. I appreciate both of them very much. I think they both have their strengths and weaknesses equally across the board. Obviously, one does feel more kind of the fantasy, the long ago and far away field. Star Trek is more, what our future could be. Gosh, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm going to say both. I'm going to do the cop out answer, and I'm going to say both. That's it. It's both. Because I don't think that to me, the best of Star Wars and the best of Star Trek are both just equally wonderful, and the worst of them are both kind of equally quite a weakness. So, I think across the board, I feel that they are equal, and I enjoy both of them. Yes. So
I have another question for you. I'm going off script here, but because it's you, I have to ask.
Okay.
Bridgerton or Sanditon?
Sanditon.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer Sanditon.
And why is that? Can you
why? Because I gave you a monosyllabic answer. So I think Bridgerton feels more like fantasy. It's like historical romance fantasy. I feel like Sanditon is more in the spirit of Jane Austen, but then kind of shaped just a little bit more for now. And I also feel that Sanditon did a really great job of growing into itself. That each season really pushed its boundaries and got stronger with the writing and the acting. So I'm going to go with Sanditon on that one. Bridgerton is fun in its way, and I enjoyed it, but Sanditon is one that I have gone back and rewatched. So that gets my vote.
Okay, next question. Okay. Have you ever attended a Worldcon?
No. I'm sorry, I don't think I can elaborate on that.
No. Okay, done. Next. Well, that's good. That's okay. That's okay, because the next one you probably will have a lot to say. So what inspires you to write? Or
that moment of static before the thoughts start to coalesce.
That's okay.
I don't know. And I've thought of that, because you see that question, and I thought of this, and I was trying to think what inspires me. And I there's a part of me that wants to say, oh, life in general inspires me. I honestly don't know, because writing is something that I have dabbled in since I was in my teens. So it was obviously something that was in me to do. And so I don't know if it was something that was in my brain chemistry that, like, you are going to write and you are going to want to do this, and things will inspire you differently from people who maybe don't want to write or don't. Yeah. Um, I think on a more specific case, things that inspire me, I feel inspired sometimes when I read a good book, if I watch a good movie. Um, Strangely, every time I watch the movie Stranger Than Fiction, it gets me out of a writer's block and inspires me for some reason.
Hmm.
The one with Will Ferrell, where he's like in the book and Emma Thompson's writing the book, like at the same time that he's living it. For some reason,
I
that was
haven't
it.
seen
So
that one.
little things like that. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, it's honestly, I can only give kind of a vague answer, that it's just the stories are there for me to write, and I don't know what triggers them from
Hmm.
one moment to the next. I really don't. And I wish I had some better answer for that, some kind of artistic, my muse is, I don't know. I don't know what my muse is. They're just there, crowding for my attention.
Do you tend to think of characters first or stories first?
Oh, characters, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I almost always have the character first, that it will be, this is someone who is older, someone who is younger, someone who has grief, da da da, and then it kind of builds out from there, and then they find themselves in this situation, and then it starts to snowball.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's almost always characters first.
Great, good. And do you find now? Here's a question, because you write historical fantasy. But because you do write historical fantasy, so how do you bring the world building into that? So the fantasy aspects, incorporating that into the historical aspects.
One of the things that I think I like to do with writing historical fantasy is I like to write in worlds that aren't magically inclined, if that makes sense. That it's not like, oh, it's exactly like this world, but there's always been magic, or it's exactly like this world, there's always been. I like to approach it as if it's exactly the world that we've learned about in history books and everything. And then suddenly someone realizes that, oh, well, there's a dragon that hatches, or
Mm-hmm.
this is happening, that yeah, so it's not a world that has been shaped by magic or anything. It's a world that suddenly discovers it's there, or that it was dormant, or something along those lines.
Now I need to know, what is your favorite band or type of music?
Ugh, God, just all these, you keep doing this. My favorite band. My favorite band is actually.
Yes, here's my dragon. Okay.
Okay. Favorite band or musician? I see. I can't. This is like deciding between my children. What are you doing? I'm gonna name a couple, and I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna say probably Led Zeppelin,
Mm-hmm.
Queen, and David Bowie. Not technically band because he's a singer, but anyway.
That works.
Yeah.
No,
which probably should give you right there my favorite type of music.
Yes. That kind of
that sums it up right there. Yeah.
Sums it up. So all right. So the last question is, what are you writing now, or what are you going to write next? So.
Okay. I can do two, because there's two. Obviously right now I'm working on Miss Percy 3. Which the official title for that is Miss Percy's Definitive Guide to London Magic and the Return of the Dragons, which should give you a good idea of what happens in the book. They go to London, there's magic, and there's a bunch of dragons. So
that's very consistent with the era, the titles of books in the era era, where so-and-so travels to London and discovers
Yes, that's kind of what I base it on, is when you would have these guides and things, and then they would always have like the little subtitle that would go into this whole thing, explores southern England and up to the blah, 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 and that's what I was trying to copy, that long-winded. And then I'm also working on The next book that I have is The Womanly Art of Monster Hunting, which is not connected with Miss Percy, but it is also historical. Also another one of those worlds where there's not fantasy. And basically, to sum it up very simply, would be, I'd say, Pride and Prejudice, but Mr. Darcy is a vampire and wants to kill everyone.
Oh.
But it's more of comedic, so it's kind of a black comedy is what we're going for.
Okay, cool. Neat.
So it would be along that line. Handsome stranger comes to the local small village and bodies start turning up and people start disappearing.
And
Surely,
a young
yes.
and a local young lady takes up the
yes, yeah, two local young ladies, best friends. Yes, decide to, what's going on here? Yes.
Awesome. So they put down their embroidery and
yes,
go out into
and
the moors.
Go out vampire hunting. Yes.
That's awesome. Good. And do they know about vampires, or do they have to like learn as they go?
They only know from like, Gothic tales and, myth and things. So they have to kind of learn as they go.
Okay.
So that'll be interesting. Like, well, I read this book where vampires are like this. Well, I don't think they're like that at all, And so it's all these very polite Regency discussions of how they think they should go about fighting vampires. Yes.
That sounds great. I can't wait for that one. So, all right. Well, I think that we'll sum it up, or we'll wrap it up there. But anyway, Quenby Olson, thank you so much for joining us. This has been Glasgow 2024 presents Meet the Author, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Find more Meet the Author interviews on the Glasgow 2024 YouTube channel, along with the Indie Author Reading Library and recordings of previous Glasgow 2024 Presents panels. Hit subscribe to get notifications for every new video. Find us at glasgow2024.org and as Glasgow in 2024 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check out our cool merch at http://redbubble.com/people/Glasgow2024/shop. Consider joining by emailing volunteers@glasgow2024.org.